This time on Superstars, 5 of the most revered male actors in Hollywood. It was Robert Duvall who uttered the immortal line, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning," in the 1979 Vietnam War epic Apocolypse Now.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
His chilling portrayal of Lieutenant Colonel Kilgour earned him his second Academy Award nomination for supporting actor and marked his third collaboration with Francis Ford Coppola. His breakout role had come in the first installment of the Italian director's grand masterpiece, The Godfather, in 1972. Robert reprised the role of Vito Corleone's adopted son in The Godfather 2 2 years later. After receiving a third Best Supporting nomination for The Great Santini in 1979, he finally carried off an Oscar for Best Actor in 1983 for Tender Mercies, which told the story of a recovering alcoholic country singer.
I wrote a few letters. Did you ever get them?
No.
Well, your mama did have to give them to you.
He continued to work steadily as an actor throughout the 80s and 90s. And in 1997, he broke new ground as the writer-director as well as star of The Apostle, about a charismatic Pentecostal minister with a wandering eye. 5 years later, he was back behind the camera for Assassination Tango, which combined his two greatest passions, filmmaking and the tango.
Who's better, you or her?
Acting opposite his real-life wife, Luciana Pedraza, at more than 40 years her senior, Robert played a hitman whose trip to Argentina becomes a sensual escape and introduction to the world of tango. Robert, who speaks fluent Spanish and whose favorite city is Buenos Aires, refused to opt for a caricatured representation of Latin American culture.
Well, I just hope that people will see it and realize that we tried to turn the process around and let the perceptions come from here and not something that we imposed upon their culture.
The film, which he also wrote, was bankrolled by his old pal Francis Ford Coppola. And when it finally became his turn to be presented with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, he was supported by another household name he'd worked with in Sling Blade.
I can't think of anybody in the world that deserves this more than Bobby, and I'm really proud to be here. Thank you.
Even at the age of 72, Robert wasn't thinking about retirement.
It's a privilege to work in this profession as a professional actor. I'm very proud of it, and I still got a lot left in me before they begin wiping the drool.
He proved his commitment by appearing in 3 films in 2003, including Secondhand Lions with Michael Caine and Haley Joel Osment. As a patriotic American, he was also delighted to play an old-time free-range cattleman in Kevin Costner's Western Open Range.
Well, it's part of our heritage. It's our thing. It's unique to this country and a little bit in Canada, but the Western it's us.
And in Gods and Generals, he got to fight the Confederate fight as General Robert E. Lee, who was his ancestor in real life. The film's themes had particular poignancy as America prepared to enter the war with Iraq.
War is horrible. Robert E. Lee said it is terrible. It is well that war is so terrible, or we should grow too fond of it. That's a pretty deep thing to say, and it applies now.
4 years later, at the age of 76, Robert was still churning out movies at the rate of at least 2 a year.
I'm doing what I like to do in life. Many people can't do that. I'm fortunate to be able to do that, and I love my work, and I always look for something new and hopefully novel that I can attempt. You know, as a character actor, you try different things, so it's I feel good about things, and you know, there's some time left.
You should do, kid.
In 2007, he starred alongside Eric Bana and Drew Barrymore as a gambler in Lucky You. With 2 more films released in 2008, Robert had plenty to take his mind off the disappointment of seeing his beloved Republican Party lose out to the Democrats in the November election. As well as appearing on stage supporting John McCain in Mexico, he'd been quoted as saying that as far as he was concerned, they had to keep Barack Obama out of the White House. Like Robert Duvall, Morgan Freeman is in his early 70s and is busier than ever.
I use the simile of a light bulb. You know, and people say, well, you know, you're working more and more and more and more and more. And I say, well, yeah, but you know, when a light bulb is getting ready to burn out, it burns brightest. So, you know, making hay while the sun shines, because, you know, it's like, okay, this could all come to an end next week.
But unlike Robert Duvall, he backed the winner in the 2008 US presidential race. Despite his Nigerian ancestry, however, Morgan has criticized strident black rights activists, saying that the only way to stop racism is to stop talking about it and take a much more conciliatory approach. For his own part, the native of Memphis, Tennessee, is well known for spreading the love. On the set of The Bucket List opposite Jack Nicholson, he regularly greeted director Rob Reiner with open arms.
Every morning I get a big hug from Morgan, and one
We
day...
didn't hug today.
That's right.
Even while lying in agony waiting for rescue workers to cut him free from the wreckage of a car crash in August 2008, Morgan was worried about the welfare of others at the scene.
Morgan was more concerned about the people around him than he was himself. He kept asking me, was I all right? And I told him that, no, my feet were cold because I was standing in water. And he was concerned somewhat about that.
The crash left him needing surgery for breaks to his shoulder, arm and elbow. But when his divorce from his wife of 24 years was announced less than a month later, it raised inevitable questions about his relationship with a woman whose car he'd been driving and who was also injured in the crash. It was turning into a very busy year for the 71-year-old actor who'd seen 4 films released in the past 12 months. As well as the charming buddy movie Bucket List about 2 terminal cancer patients who decide to help each other live it up before they die, he'd starred as techno wizard Lucius Fox in the Batman mega-sequel The Dark Knight.
Compared to your usual requests, jumping out of an airplane is pretty straightforward.
At the German premiere, he summed up the buzz with one of his trademark understatements.
It generates quite a lot of excitement. It would seem to be because this is number 5, but because it's, everybody knows this is a new approach. And so it turned out real good. I'm sure you've heard.
Well used to playing God in the comedies Bruce and Evan Almighty, he signed up to play the leader of a secret society of assassins in the action adaptation of the comic book series Wanted, alongside Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy. Undoubtedly, it's Morgan's commanding tone that has helped him to such authoritative roles over the years. His rich and distinctive voice was also a factor in winning him his first Oscar in 2004's $1 Million Baby, in which he doubles as Clint Eastwood's best friend and the film's narrator.
She's not asking for God's help, she's asking for mine. Because of you, Maggie got her shot. I think I did all right.
His narrating services have also been called upon for films like War of the Worlds and March of the Penguins. In 2006, he proved that he'd become a legend in his own lifetime when he played himself in the drama 10 Items or Less.
Act all the time.
Well, I suppose when one's a performer, one does like doing the acting thing, yes.
His young co-star, Paz Vega, was suitably overawed.
And I was so nervous. Almost I couldn't read. Because, you know, it's Morgan Freeman. I mean, oh, he's tall, the voice, everything. But he always tried to make me comfortable.
As executive producer, he then went on to show that you can teach an old dog new tricks, when 10 Items or Less became the first movie in history to be released for download through the internet while it was still in theaters, through his distribution company, Clickstar.
TV, you gotta wait. And then DVD, you gotta wait. And by the time it gets to you, you're selling something else, you know? So this is a way to, again, broaden our scope.
In 2009, Morgan will be broadening his scope by playing former South African President Nelson Mandela. approaching 80, oft-imitated Scottish actor Sean Connery has finally given away the acting, but only because he's too busy doing other things.
I've come into a different cycle since I decided not to do any more films. And so I do more reading and computer and golf. But I find them still more active in some ways. And I have a feeling that there's something cooking, and I don't know quite what it is yet.
He was at the 2008 Edinburgh Book Festival to launch his long-awaited autobiography, Being a Scot, packed with anecdotes about his 50-year career, which included working with Alfred Hitchcock.
After a run, as they say, cut, comes up to me and says, you know, I don't think the people in Delaware are really interested in your dental work. Well, I can't quite, he said, your mouth is open when you're listening. Which is true.
Into bodybuilding and football as a youngster, the story goes that he tried out for Manchester United in the 1950s and was offered a contract by Matt Busby. He turned the offer down in favour of acting and went on to bring in Fleming's quintessential British spy to life on the big screen over the course of 6 James Bond films. Although Fleming was initially reported to disapprove of Sean's casting as 007, he ended up being so impressed with his performance in 1962's Dr. No that he wrote Scottish ancestry into James Bond's backstory in later novels. At an AFI Awards ceremony in 2006, director-producer Steven Spielberg called Sean one of the 7 genuine movie stars in the world today. Some of his most critically acclaimed work came in the mid-80s, with his BAFTA-winning role as a Franciscan friar in the thriller The Name of the Rose, and his portrayal of a hard-nosed cop in The Untouchables, which won him an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
I knew it. That's all you need, one thieving wop on the team.
What's that you say?
I said that you're a lying member of a no-good race.
It's much better than you stinking Irish pig.
A fierce campaigner for Scottish independence, he became known for clinging to his native accent in movies, regardless of the nationality of his characters. In one of his very last films in 2003, he lent his trademark tones to the role of the world's greatest adventurer, Alan Quatermain, in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Accustomed to being cast as leaders and mentors on screen, he took on the behind-the-scenes challenge of becoming executive producer.
Well, because it fell into the same pattern as many other films, where one was obliged to step in and resolve certain problems.
The project was plagued by a multitude of setbacks, including floods on the set in Prague and reports of disputes between Sean and director Stephen Norrington. Perhaps other tensions on set had arisen from his castmates' inability to hold back the Sean Connery impersonations.
One of his assistants said, what shouldn't you do? And she says 2 things. And we said, what's that? He said, you must never do the accent, and you must never do the accent. So me, and especially Mr. Fleming, went, oh, what are you talking about, boy?
It was a similar story when he was honoured with an AFI Lifetime Achievement Award.
Bond, James Bond.
Surrounded by his peers and former co-stars, Sean seemed a little bewildered by all the fuss.
It's been even more and more bewildering as I've gone until as recent as tonight. And the show hasn't started yet.
The famously understated Harrison Ford, with whom he'd starred in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, was uncharacteristically effusive.
He's my father, my mentor, my inspiration. Great man, wonderful occasion. I'm delighted to be here to honor him.
However, original Playboy Hugh Hefner was on hand to downplay Sean's enduring sex god image.
Who would you say has had more women?
Well, one is real life, the other is a movie.
2007 was already shaping up to be a very good year indeed for Texas-born actor Forest Whitaker, when he stepped out to hear his peers heap praise on him as he unveiled his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
He's kind and humane, and yet he's, as I say, he's brilliant and enigmatic in his craft as well.
Someone was saying earlier that getting a star on the Walk of Fame and having a year like Forrest just had must be every actor's dream. And I said, yeah, except that Forrest is the one rare exception where every other actor will actually be so glad that Forrest had it.
I guess it means that it's an acknowledgement of my work and what I've offered, you know, partly to the culture, and an inclusion and a legacy that's cinema in the United States.
3 months earlier, Forrest had been discussing the intense process of preparing for his role as Idi Amin in Last King of Scotland at the Capri Film Festival.
Then I came to Uganda, and I started meeting. I met with his ministers, his generals, his brothers and sisters, elders that grew up with him. I did it. It was a long affair.
I may wear the uniform of a general, but in my heart, I am a simple man.
Getting into character reportedly also involved piling on 50 pounds and learning to play the accordion. It certainly wasn't the first time that he'd immersed himself in heavy preparation for a role. To play Charlie Parker in Clint Eastwood's film Bird, Forrest was said to have locked himself away for a month in a loft with only a bed, a couch and a saxophone. Before playing the samurai-wielding mobster in 1999's Ghost Dog, he studied Eastern philosophy and meditated for hours. Although both of these roles won him rave reviews, it was his turn as the charismatically despotic Idi Amin that brought home the bacon in terms of awards. First big cab off the rank was a Screen Actors Guild Award.
I don't know, I mean, it's been an amazing ride. And I mean, it's not a ride I'm used to. I've never had it. I've won the Cannes Awards. I've been nominated for Golden Globe, but different because there's so much positive energy. I was talking about Will, I was talking about, Leo, like, everybody's been so positive, all the people.
He also took out a BAFTA and a Golden Globe. By the time the Oscars rolled around, he was the runaway favorite to be the 4th African-American to win a Best Actor Oscar. As expected, he ended up walking away with a coveted gong. And despite being rather overawed by all the attention, Forrest was determined to enjoy it.
It takes a lot because you're talking constantly. You're always talking to the press or going to these different events. And so that can be tiring, but you try to, or at least I try to enjoy every moment and recognize it's one moment I'm going to have that chance to have that feeling, for the first time. And I tried to embrace it. So it went really beautifully.
Then it was straight back down to work, starring in The Great Debaters alongside Denzel Washington, who also produced and directed the film.
Jesus was a radical. Careful. Yes, he was. Careful. Jesus was a radical. Mental institutions are filled with people who have confused themselves with Jesus Christ. I'm not confused. Oh, you convinced you're Jesus Christ now? You convinced you're Jesus Christ?
Oh,
you know what words do. Okay. Come on now. Amen. Don't want to confuse yourself with Jesus Christ.
I'm not confused. I'm convinced.
Set in the segregated South of 1930s America, The Great Debaters was based on the true story of inspirational professor and debate team coach Melvin B. Tolson.
This story is about triumph of the spirit and working hard and like being able to express yourself. I mean, it took place in a time where it was difficult for them to have this opportunity, and they got that opportunity and they won. And I think that's something to let everybody know that everything's possible.
Another of the film's producers, Oprah Winfrey, was beside herself when she heard that Forrest was on board.
I was emailing Forrest, and I was like, well, I think that, we're going to be talking to you about, I dared not even ask the question myself. So I let Denzel handle all of that, and when I heard that Forrest was able to do it, I did a little Hallelujah Holy Dance.
After playing a college professor in The Great Debaters, he played a tourist in Vantage Point and a cop in the action drama Street Kings opposite Keanu Reeves. Along with Dragon Hunters, Winged Creatures and Hurricane Season, it took his tally of 2008 film projects to 5, ensuring that Forrest Whitaker will indeed remain a part of the ether in Hollywood.
Come on, wait.
Over the last couple of years, the British actor who was born Ralph Nathaniel Twistleton Wickham Fiennes has been inspiring more column inches with his extracurricular activities than with his acting achievements. In 2007, Ralph Fiennes made the headlines after being sprung leaving the same aircraft toilet as Qantas hostess Lisa Robertson. After initially denying that they'd had sex, Lisa sang like a canary and sold the whole sordid story to the papers before being fired by Qantas. 1 month later, Ralph was in the news again when he reportedly disturbed sleeping guests at a top-notch Belgium hotel with a 5 a.m. naked poolside romp with 4 women while filming in Bruges. 15 years earlier, the third cousin of intrepid explorer Sir Ranulph Fiennes had kept himself busy carving out a name for himself as an actor. Having already starred in Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights and A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia, he was cast as the concentration camp commander Amon Gert in Steven Spielberg's Oscar-winning epic Schindler's List.
Finish. Enjoying the lines, little Polish-looking soldier.
He won a Best Supporting BAFTA for his efforts. Then in 1996, he landed an Oscar nomination for his turn as a badly burned, morphine-addicted Hungarian geographer, laid up in a ruined Italian villa in World War II.
Open the door.
After several more serious roles, he embraced the chance to lighten up a bit in 2002's Made in Manhattan, opposite Jennifer Lopez.
Your husband wouldn't mind.
I just wanted to do a romantic comedy, and I thought this script was very charming. It wasn't particularly alternative in any way, but it was the Cinderella story, and I thought it was also a celebration of New York City at a time when I think it would be good to sort of celebrate what's great about New York. And
it was just one of 4 films he appeared in that year. Other movies he lent his talents to included the adaptation of Thomas Harris's original Hannibal Lecter novel Red Dragon and the psychological thriller Spider. He was all over the big screen like a rash in 2005, with no fewer than 6 films hitting cinemas. As well as terrifying small and not-so-small children as Harry Potter's evil nemesis in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, he teamed up with Rachel Weisz to play a grieving husband on the trail of his wife's killer in The Constant Gardener.
As an actor, I responded to the role of Justin, this diplomat who's quite passive and gentle, not particularly active politically at all. He's a diplomat, but is motivated by his wife's murder into being something of an angry idealist himself at the end. I love the journey of that, to chart that journey, that sort of it's kind of awakening of someone. That's what drew me.
If he was awake on the set of The Constant Gardener, he was flying blind on another of his 2005 projects, which required him to lend his voice to the character of Victor Quatermain in the Wallace and Gromit adventure Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
It's peculiar because you don't know what the visuals are going to be like. So you're in the studio with Nick and Steve doing all these absurd comic voices, or a voice, you know, and they have an idea in their head of what they want. You're trying to come up to it, meet the challenge.
More recently, Ralph has reprised his role as the epitome of evil in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and starred alongside Keira Knightley in The Duchess, about an 18th century English society darling whose unconventional marriage sees her living with her husband's mistress.
Have you fathered that child?
It's only a little girl, G. It's hardly the end of the world.